Tukwaniriza nate olunaku olwaleero ku program emanyikiddwa nga Perception olinange Grand Abbot the West Zulu tuli ku TV Africa tusinzidde mu kizungu makindye era nga nakusuubiza olunaku olwaleero okubanga tulina omugenyi mu studio abamu ku bantu ab'enjawulo baganda baffe abakulira ebweru wa Africa. In the studios right now I have a visitor, and this visitor is a sister from the diaspora, and it's quite interesting because we have been these days discussing about topics how women can indulge their work and consciousness into construction of Africa to go back on its top. I'm glad to have you in the studios, Madam Amenti.
Bless you.
So I'm very interested, and the people are really waiting to hear much from you as we shall go by through the topic and other things we are going to discuss. I want you to really introduce yourself fully to the audience.
Okay. Yes. Greetings, TV Africa, and greetings, Brother Zulu. Thank you for inviting me here. I am Amenti the Awakener, Amenti the Oracle. I'm a spiritual healer, a liberator of African consciousness in the diaspora, and a mother, and somebody who's committed my life to not only empowering myself but other people to bring change collectively, not just for African people but for humanity as one. I am an author of a book called 12 Seeds to Awaken Your Spirit, which is a spiritual development and empowerment workbook. I'm also on the radio and in the UK. So I'm on Amiga FM radio, and I do a show called the Spiritual Awakening Show. And I'm a holistic health and wellness consultant, so I teach people about the importance of health, wealth, food, and all of those good things. So I'm grateful to be here.
That is very interesting. When I hear you speak about health,
yes.
You speak about hypnotherapy,
yes.
regression therapy,
yes.
you're a mother,
yes.
and again you do some history.
Yes.
Let's begin by this thing. You know, now when I'm seated with you in the studio, and they hear sister is coming from UK, they expect me to have got money from you. Why is it that people have that concept of the diaspora or the Western world as a source of wealth, and have really polished it out of their minds from the African part of contribution to the wealth and resources of the planet?
Yeah. I mean, that is a topic that I can definitely talk about. First and foremost, you mentioned, you know, why is it that people in homeland Africa see those from the diaspora as having wealth? And that's because of the European mindset. But what we have to understand is that through slavery, there was a separation of those who were at home and those who now became a part of the diaspora. The concept is, the understanding sometimes is that because we're living in, you know, these wealthy countries such as Europe, that we are, you know, living from a place of wealth. And that's not true. Because even though we are in those countries, we're still under the same subjugation as those who are on land and those who have been through colonial rule. Yes, there is opportunities for us to make resources and make money, but at the same time, there's also, you know, as much money as we make, there are higher expectations and resources. You know, since I've been in Uganda, I've been able to live both in the city and also go into the villages. And what I'm able to see is that in the villages, and especially in Africa, there are natural abundant resources. Natural abundant resources. So we have been kind of mind tricked.
Hold on.
Yes.
When you speak about natural abundant resources, they may not get you.
Okay.
Because you may, in fact, decipher more on that.
So simple thing like in the UK, there are hardly any trees that have fruit.
Hardly any
trees that have fruit. So there are many people that are starving. If you do not have money, then you cannot eat. But in Africa, in the West Indies, where the land is abundant with natural resources, you have fruits on the trees. You can eat and still be nourished. That's at its most basic level. But we have been taught that money is a most valuable resource. But when you understand money, you realize that money is just paper. What is the real natural resource is gold, is bauxite, is natural minerals that are found in the earth, and Africa has that in abundance. Another thing that slave trade showed us is that one of the most powerful resources that we have is human energy.
Yes, human energy.
This whole slave trade was based on the energy that we had, and because we didn't have the value for life. You know, the fact that we were involved in trading our people, our brothers and sisters, meant that we didn't have that value for life. And so therefore, we've gone through this process of not really understanding how valuable we as humans are. Without the energy of the slave trade, there would be no great Europe that we're seeing now, because it's our energy that created and built that.
For years and years.
Definitely.
Now, there is something that is funny today, mostly on the part of our women, black women. We have many companies that are now dealing in taking our people to work in West Asia, mistaken called the Middle East, and others going to Europe. And I see this is some kind of reverse slavery, but I don't think if our people can understand it, because their human resources have been exploited.
Exactly.
And then people think if you're in Europe, you're in heaven. You really have to tell us, are there poor whites?
Yeah, there are. There are poor whites. And there are white people who are living below standard. When it comes to poverty, poverty knows no color. It's a consciousness, okay? And we've been given that consciousness through things like slavery and how we've been living, okay? So when that conception that people in the West have more money, it is absolutely ridiculous, because it's not true.
Is the pound backed by anything like diamonds, gold?
That's the thing. The pound is only backed by the Commonwealth. And the Commonwealth is basically the British Empire. So when the British Empire was in power and they had all of these countries connected in their empire, in order to give them independence, each country had to then get a loan from the International Monetary Fund. What that did was bind each country, because newly independent countries cannot survive on their own. They need machinery and things to be able to cultivate their resources. Now, because they didn't have that money, they would have to now get money from the British colony, money that they were then not able to pay back, which now means that they owe the state, which is the British Empire,
so they are
money.
in a debt.
They are indebted instantly. The minute that you have independence, you have debt.
You have debt.
And they create that deliberately so that each country that gains independence is actually now going to be giving over their energy and their resources to the British government without the British government having to give them anything in return. Before independence, when we had colonial rule, those who were in charge, whether it's the British, the German, the French, whoever, they were responsible. They were responsible for the development of their colonies. Independence meant that they no longer had to be responsible, but would still yield the benefits.
The exploitation goes on.
That's it.
Now, that topic is very interesting, because here in Uganda, you know, whenever it's 9th October, we see mostly our women, we have, they call it Independence Ground in Kololo. They dress in all these colors of the Ugandan flag and they rejoice for the independence. But really, I think they are surprised to hear that they are celebrating a date.
Definitely.
That will trail them over and over for years. Let's go into this idea of writing books. There is a saying that if you want to hide something from black people, keep it in the book.
Exactly.
One time I was arguing, telling people, you know, when the blacks keep on reading into these books and they all find all the discoveries, they're being paralyzed, and it's white men discovering everything, yet they discover them before a white man knew what a shoe was. I think it's part of the problem. But as you as a therapist, I think you have another approach to our people here, because the reading phobia is rampant.
Definitely. What we have to understand is that before things like the slave trade and colonialization, we were highly intelligent. We were the ones that created the first languages. One of the biggest libraries in the whole of the world was in Timbuktu. But this was burnt down during the times of slavery for a reason. And that was to keep us enslaved mentally. Because without knowledge...
You're speaking of the University of Sankore?
Yes. That's it. Without knowledge, we're not able to feed our minds, and we're not able to rise and evolve and understand how to utilize this world that we're living in. So during the times of slavery and colonialization, we were told that we weren't allowed to read, we weren't allowed to write. So this meant that all of our information came from our oppressors, whilst our oppressors studied the great philosophies of ancient Kemet and ancient Sumer and all of those civilizations. So that is why they say if you want to hide something from a black person, to put it in a book, because they deliberately created it so that we weren't able to gain knowledge. And then so therefore we had this phobia around books. For me personally, I love knowledge. From a child, I was inspired by books, and I sought to read every book that I could find. Even my home is filled with books.
That's wonderful.
Because in order for us to really prosper, we have to know ourselves. We have to know our past in order to change our future. And so I encourage each and every person to try and get past that phobia of reading, because what you can read will allow you to inspire your mind to see yourself outside of your current situation.
Somebody told me reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body.
Exactly. And what breathing is as well. It gives you life and inspiration. We are cognitive beings, meaning that when we take information in, we expand it and then we can do things with it. But when we don't read, we're limited in our perception. And that perception will then limit our opportunities in the way that we see the world. So our ancestors were great readers, great philosophers, great writers. And if we're able to now engage in that same way of getting information, then we can go on to be successful and prosperous in our future.
You spoke about a book you wrote.
Yes.
I want to know more about that, and the entire public, it can be inspiration to our women.
Brilliant, yes. Okay, so my book is called 12 Seeds to Awaken Your Spirit.
12 Seeds
to Awaken Your Spirit. And it's based on the understanding that each and every one of us started off in the heavens as a star. And that our plan for what it was going to do in this lifetime was written way before we came here. And then we descended in consciousness and became these seeds that were planted into the fertile soil of Mother Earth. We're nurtured by the elements of fire, earth, air, and water. And we go through different trials and tribulations that allow us to now elevate in consciousness back to the divinity of the stars. Our ancestors studied the stars and they studied astronomy. And when you study astrology, it gives you a higher understanding of who you are beyond the flesh. So when I was 33, I was just about to finish my 33rd year. I had a vision and God said to me, what is it that I will have to leave as a legacy for about what I've learned about this journey through life? And within a month, that book was written. By the end of within a month, and it's over it's over 400 pages long, and it's basically a workbook which allows you to now start asking yourself questions about your life, your spiritual journey, but it also includes some information about my spiritual journey and what I've learned. So the 12 seeds are based on 12 different aspects of things that we go through in our life and the things that we need as our spiritual foundation. The first seed is know thyself.
Know thyself.
So within that, we know that in every spiritual tradition, the first thing is about knowing who you are. So in that, I talk about my journey, I talk about my past life memories, and I talk about the development journey that I went on to knowing who I am. It then goes on to talk about understanding the laws of the universe, because our ancestors knew how the universe worked. They knew that every cause has an effect, every action has an effect. So then they knew how to manifest what it is that they wanted into their realities. We've lost that knowledge. Another seed is understanding how to turn your past pain into your power. Pain into power. That's it. Many of us have been through trauma in our lives. We go through experiences and stresses, but we've chosen them from a higher perspective for a reason, because all of those situations will help us to grow spiritually into who it is that we have become. But because we're so traumatized by those experiences, we don't go into it and look at what is the learning in those experiences. I found that with a lot of my clients, I have clients who are sometimes 50 and 60 years old, who are still held hostage by things that happened to them as a child. Through the topics in this book, it will help you to start unpicking all of your experiences so that you can now understand them from a higher perspective and help yourself and others to move forward.
Oh, that is very, very wonderful. So this could be a very good book, but now we can't find it. Can we find it in any libraries here in Uganda?
I will be bringing some to Uganda. I'm going to be coming back here very soon, so I'll be bringing some. It's also available online as well, so you can get the ebook copy as well if that's something that you want to do.
Now, it's quite interesting to have, an author, a teacher, a liberator, a therapist, then a presenter, entrepreneur, international best-selling, author. It's all that inspiration. We have a concept here. I don't know if it's also affecting our African sisters in the diaspora. Here there is a saying that if you want to advertise something, to sell it to women, you put it on TV. Now, what is rampant today that has eaten up the minds of the black women here, it is soaps.
Yeah.
Mostly Indian, Filipino, those kind of soaps. And it's when the time comes for them to air, it's when they call the babies.
Yes.
Yet we know images really shape our reality.
Definitely.
But now the mothers are bringing these images, you know, they in fact give them more credit when they're with the children. I think it has an impact to the mindsets of the children.
Definitely.
Has it happened in the diaspora as it is?
Yes, but I wouldn't, I mean, yes, I would say that it does. I mean, even from my own experience, I don't watch TV now. I don't have a TV because I've understood that TV is programming. When you become conscious, you understand that everything that you feed your mind has an effect on you and goes into your subconscious. And so there is a culture of, because women are at home and looking after children, there is a culture through the media that is about conditioning women and keeping them in a program of drama, just constantly in that space of drama. And if a woman is in a space of being entertained, then she's not elevating her mind. And then if she's encouraging her children in that same path, then they're not being elevated either. So I do agree with you that that is something that has happened. But we have to understand that the power of what we put into our minds, you know. So I encourage the women out there to be conscious about what it is that they're watching, because whenever I'm watching anything, I think about it like this: how is this informing me? How is this going to help me to move forward? Because TV can be a productive thing if you're watching things like business programs or if you're learning, but you have to be conscious of what it is that you're putting into your mind. And as the mothers, we are the ones that, you know, raise the children. And so if our mind is not vibrating at the right frequency, if we're not feeding our mind with the right information, then our children will also grow up without having that right information in their mind as well. And that's what will stunt their growth. So I believe that it is a political agenda. It's something that's done deliberately to ensure that we don't expand our mind. But we as women have to understand that we have the power to choose what it is that we tune into. And we have to be mindful of that.
There is a question, this real question really, I would like to ask. If you read books like Destruction of the Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams, there is that exquisite part about Queen Nzinga.
Yes.
And I don't know, is there any problem, not our people involved into the movie industry to really exploit these stories and make series out of them so that they can even reach out to the black people so that at least we can get our own stories in the movie than the propaganda?
This is why organizations like TV Africa is so important. The issue that we've had in the black community is that we do not own our own media stream. So therefore, we're not in control of what is being programmed into our consciousness. Something like a story about Queen Nzinga will be liberating to African people. So you cannot expect the mass media to put something like that out because it goes against their agenda. The minute that we as black people see ourselves in powerful roles, it's going to ignite something in our consciousness that will bring back that energy to us. That's not what they want. So we have to be the ones that take our great African stories and recreate them using our media and projecting it out to our consciousness. Even though, I mean, TV Africa is a great station, but there's also mediums such as YouTube. So even if you were interested and you were a budding filmmaker, you could create that movie and then post it on things such as Facebook and YouTube, which is another way of a free media, and push those images out. But we have to understand that we cannot wait for other people to invest in trying to uplift us, because it's to their benefit that we are suppressed. It has to come from us. And so I encourage anyone who has an idea, all of us young people who are studying media, to take these stories of our great ancestors and bring them into... You can start to see these stories, because I know that even as a young person, once you see an African person of great power on the screen, it's going to activate something in you, and you're going to want to know, how can I be great like that? And that's what we need. That's how we can make the programming positive.
On that very session, you know, sometimes we discuss and we talk about those great women. You can give us like 4 of those black women really that inspire you. At least it comes from a woman.
Of course.
Not from a man, you know. What happens, the history that we're teaching here, his story, in fact, not our story,
yes,
does not include African women. They were excluded from all the records. So they see themselves as if they have nothing to do to the contribution into the civilizations and this knowledge and all these liberations. So, you know, when you speak about them, they say, but you people, you parade woman first. But because there is that embedded information into them about European male favorism.
Yes.
You can...
Definitely, because that is a European concept. If we look in African history, African is basically a matriarchal lineage. It's based on the feminine energy being at the foundation of everything.
Yes.
If you look at the Ashanti tribe, if you look at
the
how Igbo, you know, if you see how even the kings are chosen, it's always from the matriarchal lineage, the mother's lineage, you know. So I don't believe that this is indigenous to us as African people. I believe that that mindset of male chauvinism has been gifted to us by the Europeans. And so for me, it's all about going back to the root. The mother is the source. Without the mother, there is nothing. She is the first God that we know. She's the first creator. And so we as African people have to look towards our own history and look towards our own root and our own experience. Because even in the slave trade, even though our mothers were taken to foreign lands, they were still breastfeeding, you know, the European children. So our DNA is inside of those children. We were still the nurturers for them. Even our oppressors saw the greatness in the African woman. And so we have to go back to those original ways of thinking and honor the divine feminine again and nurture our mothers. But you asked me about different female in our past that I believe, you know, that I admire. One is Queen Hatshepsut, because she basically represented that masculine and feminine energy in one, and that is what the divine mother is. When a mother is left with the father as left, she has to take on both roles, and it's not to say that she can do it all on her own, but there's a natural instinct within her that aligns and empowers her to do so. And I believe that Hatshepsut represents that divine masculine and feminine working in harmony.
Now that's where we can first hold on there. You see, when you speak about Hatshepsut, they will not know who she was.
Oh, okay. Yeah. She was a great queen of Egypt, a great queen of Kemet. And she ruled for a very, very long and abundant period of time, at a time when Egypt was going through a great transition. And she was also seen as mysterious because not many people knew whether she was male or female. And that's because she was able to embody that masculine energy, because she knew that that is what her people would have respected, because that's what they were used to. But they didn't understand that behind every throne, behind every masculine king on the throne, is a divine feminine woman who is feeding and supporting that consciousness.
What I know about Queen Hatshepsut, I remember after her reign there came Thutmose.
That's it.
I read somewhere she helped to begin to open up one of the towns in Somalia, present-day Mogadishu.
Yes.
She was a very good explorer.
Definitely.
And she introduced the system of constructing the holy chambers for the pharaohs deep into the mountains. Normal construction of the pyramids. And then she began the Valley of the Kings.
Exactly that.
So that is one Hatshepsut.
Yes.
Very wonderful.
Also, Queen Makeda, the Queen of Sheba.
Wonderful.
Yes, she is very, very important to me. Number one, because I believe that our energies very much align. She was the Empress of Ethiopia, and she was also Empress of many other places as well. And she traveled to Jerusalem in Israel to go and meet with King Solomon to gain wisdom. And for me, I'm always in the pursuit of wisdom. I've traveled here to Uganda in the pursuit of wisdom, to get as close to the source as possible. And what I admired about her is she was an empress, and to be an empress means to govern more than one land. Okay, and I believe that the black woman is empress also because she rules the heavens and the earth. Right? And for me, Queen Makeda was so important and so influential that after her meeting with Solomon, the Ark of the Covenant, which was the sacred chamber which represented spiritual power on earth, was now taken to Ethiopia, where she resided, therefore showing the handover of spiritual consciousness from that of the masculine energy to that of the feminine. As we know, the whole of Africa, the whole of the world was called Ether Utopia. And that means the place where God loves to dwell. You know, so Ethiopia, as much as it's a small landmass now, was a very big landmass at that particular time. And it was symbolic of the returning of that divinity to the land of the mother.
The mother.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Those are two. Another one.
Okay. Queen Nyabingi.
Nyabingi.
Yes.
Wow.
I've been studying Queen Nyabingi recently because obviously coming to Uganda, I wanted to explore more of the history and the culture here. And the story of Queen Nyabingi is so entrenched in your culture. Obviously, her manifesting as Musamosa, is it Musamosa? Musamosa, yeah. In the later times. But that energy of that divine feminine energy that was a warrior. And not only a warrior, she also taught her people, those who followed her, how to live harmoniously on the land. When we look at the Rastas, the Rastafarian movement that's taken place in Jamaica and in the Diaspora, Nyabingi set that foundation. And for a very long time, people didn't understand what the drumming and the calling of Nyabingi was about. But what it is, it's about invoking that feminine warrior spirit. We do not understand that the feminine energy is the hidden, the masculine energy is the seen. So when we play the drums and we sing and we feel that power, that's the feminine energy that's being called forth. And Nyabingi is also connected with Sekhmet, who is the Egyptian lion deity, which represents that lion force of regality and protection. And so that energy of Queen Nyabingi, her spirit is very much present now, but has also been called forth at different times when Africans have needed protection and liberation. It was when her energy was invoked through Muhammad, that is when Muhammad was able to keep off and ward off the Germans for 21 years to stop them from being able to invade Uganda. So it's like that energy is there and it's powerful and it's prevalent. And so for me, at gmail.com. That's Amenti the Awakener official at gmail.com.
So, brothers and sisters, that's the information. Now you have access to Amenti the Awakener.
Yes.
And it has been a pleasure really to have you in the studios of TV Africa, specifically in this program, Perception. It has a viewership that is wide and the points have been well taken. And then hope to have you here next time with more vibrant information, positive as you've been. Thank you for the coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
So meet next time. So those of you TV Africa, more programs are coming in. Kabuka is coming with Maso Kurutimbe, that movie program that really happens to uplift our actors who are really doing the great stories of Africans. Let's not let the hunter to write our stories. This time, let the lions do their own stories. For the greatest good of Africa, and Africa is for the Africans. Ashe.
Ashe-yo. Bless you,
I love this show.
Oh. Thank you, everyone.